Have you ever noticed that the most powerful shifts in life rarely come from what schools teach us? It's not algebra or history that makes you unshakable in the real world. It's the harsh, almost brutal lessons about human nature, truths so uncomfortable that most people spend their entire lives avoiding them. And yet, once you face these truths, something remarkable happens. You start seeing reality exactly as it is. And when you see reality clearly, you become what I call dangerously smart. Now, I don't mean dangerous in a harmful way. I don't mean someone who uses knowledge to manipulate others. I mean dangerous in the sense that no one can so easily trick you, fool you, or control your emotions. You become the kind of person who can stand in the middle of chaos and still think clearly. And believe me, most people don't know how to handle someone like that. Think about it. How many people around you cling to the idea that life is always fair, that hard work automatically pays off, that everyone is basically good at heart? Those beliefs might sound comforting, but the Stoics warned us they're illusions. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors in history, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That one sentence holds the secret to what we're talking about today, because the real battlefield of life isn't out there, it's inside your own mind. If you can master that, no amount of betrayal, disappointment, or loss will ever completely break you. Let me ask you, have you ever had that moment when someone you trusted revealed their true colors, and suddenly you thought, how could I have been so blind? Or maybe you worked yourself to the bone, expecting recognition, and instead you got ignored, even replaced. Those are the moments when most people crumble. But for a Stoic, those are the moments where the truth sets in. The world doesn't bend to your hopes. It reveals itself exactly as it is. And here's the shocking part. Most people don't want to see the truth. Why? Because truth destroys their comfortable illusions. It forces them to admit that they can't control others, that not everyone is kind, and that effort doesn't always guarantee reward. So instead, they live in a dream, and when reality smacks them in the face, they collapse. But not you. Not if you choose to learn these ruthless lessons. Because once you do, you gain an advantage most people will never have. You'll begin to notice things others ignore. The hidden motives in someone's smile, the fear behind their anger, the insecurity behind their arrogance. You'll understand why people behave the way they do, long before they even realize it themselves. And that's the beginning of what I call dangerous intelligence. It's not just about solving problems, it's about seeing problems before they even exist. It's about knowing who you can trust, when to walk away, and when to stand firm. It's about protecting your peace of mind in a world that constantly tries to steal it from you. The Stoics mastered this thousands of years ago. They weren't just philosophers sitting in silence. They were warriors, emperors, slaves turned teachers. They faced betrayal, political plots, exile, even death. And through it all, they discovered that the only true freedom is mental freedom, the ability to see clearly and respond wisely. So as we begin this journey together, I want you to keep one question in mind. Do you want to live in illusions that make you comfortable, or in truths that make you strong? Because once you learn these ruthless lessons, you'll never see people or the world the same way again. Stay with me, because what comes next might just change the way you live your life. Let me start with a truth most people don't want to hear. Human beings are not as logical as they think. In fact, the majority of decisions people make, big or small, are driven by emotion first and only later dressed up with logic. Think about the last big purchase you made. Was it truly a rational choice, or was it about how it made you feel? I once watched a cousin of mine announce at a family dinner that he was buying a $60,000 truck. His father immediately questioned the financial wisdom. Do you really need it? Won't the payments crush your budget? My cousin fired back with logical justifications. It holds its value better. I need it for work. It's more reliable than my current car. But sitting there, it was obvious. He didn't want that truck because of utility. He wanted it because it made him feel powerful, successful, admired. The logic came later, as a defense of a choice already made emotionally. And here's the crucial point. Most arguments in life happen on the wrong battlefield. We attack someone's logic, but their decision was never logical to begin with. That's why debates often go in circles, because what's really being defended isn't facts, but feelings. The Stoic philosophers saw this clearly. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the difference between reacting from emotion and responding with reason. He reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Stoics didn't say emotions are bad. They saw emotions as signals, valuable pieces of information about what matters to us. But they also knew, if you let those emotions drive your decisions unchecked, regret almost always follows. Let me ask you, how many times in your life have you reacted in anger, only to look back and think, I shouldn't have said that? Or maybe you jumped into a relationship, a job, or a purchase out of excitement, and later wondered, what was I thinking? That's the pattern right there, emotion first, logic second. Dangerous intelligence comes from recognizing this everywhere. When someone gets defensive about their expensive daily coffee habit, they're not defending caffeine, they're defending the feeling of reward, the small luxury that tells them life is good. When coworkers resist a new system at work, they're not opposing efficiency. They're protecting their sense of security or their fear of being left behind. Once you see this, you stop being fooled by surface-level explanations. You begin to read between the lines. You realize that in most conflicts, people aren't really arguing over facts, they're wrestling with their ego, their insecurity, their need for recognition. And that's where your advantage lies. Because if you understand the emotions underneath, you can navigate situations with far more clarity than those who keep swinging at logic that doesn't matter. Instead of attacking someone's excuses, you might acknowledge the need behind them. That's a beautiful truck. You must feel proud driving it. Suddenly, the tension softens, and space opens for a rational conversation. The Stoics practiced a simple but powerful tool for this. When triggered by anger, fear, or excitement, they asked themselves, what am I feeling right now? And is this feeling helping me think clearly? That single question creates a gap between impulse and response, and in that gap lives wisdom. Epictetus taught that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. Most people react emotionally and regret it later. The dangerously intelligent learn to respond thoughtfully and rarely live with regret. Here's the takeaway. If you want to stop being manipulated, stop assuming people are logical. Look for the emotions driving their choices. And start asking yourself, what's really moving me right now, reason or emotion? That awareness alone can change the outcome of every argument, every decision, and every relationship. Let's face a truth that makes many people uncomfortable. People always act in their own self-interest. At first, that might sound cynical, even depressing. But it's not cynicism, it's reality. And once you see it clearly, it will protect you from endless disappointment and manipulation. Think about your own life. How many times have you expected someone to sacrifice their own needs for yours, only to feel hurt when they didn't? Maybe it was a friend who promised to show up but canceled at the last minute. Maybe it was a coworker who said they had your back, but when pressure came, they chose their own advancement. But in truth, they were simply acting in line with what they believed served them best. I remember my neighbor, Sarah. To everyone in the community, she looked like the perfect example of generosity. She organized block parties, baked cookies for new families, volunteered for the homeowners association. Everyone praised her selflessness, and for a while, I admired her too. But then I learned she was preparing to run for city council. Every single act of generosity had been building her reputation, planting seeds of loyalty, and crafting the image of the neighbor who cares. Was she still helping people? Absolutely. Did people benefit? Yes, but the motivation was not pure altruism. It was smart self-interest. Here's the point. Once I understood this, I didn't feel deceived. Instead, I respected her strategy. She was aligning her personal interests with the community's benefit. That's the key to sustainable relationships. The Stoic philosopher Seneca understood this perfectly. He didn't expect people to abandon their interests for his sake. Instead, he built relationships where both sides benefited. He taught that lasting cooperation comes from aligning interests, not from demanding sacrifice. Because fighting human self-interest is like fighting gravity, pointless and exhausting. So here's the dangerous intelligence. Stop asking. When a coworker offers to help you, yes, maybe they want to support you, but maybe they also want to learn your process, share credit, or build a future favor. When a friend gives advice, maybe they care about you, but maybe they also want validation for their own choices. Does that mean people are selfish in a cruel way? Not necessarily. Self-interest isn't evil, it's simply human nature. And when directed properly, it can even be virtuous. Marcus Aurelius himself admitted that even his duty as emperor served his own interest. The desire to live with honor, to be remembered as a virtuous leader, to stay true to his values. That was self-interest. 2. Just aligned with service. Once you see this, you stop being shocked when people prioritize themselves. You stop taking it personally when promises are broken or when someone chooses their path over yours. You begin to anticipate their choices, not through wishful thinking, but through realistic understanding. And here's the empowering part. If you want cooperation, don't expect people to sacrifice for you. Instead, structure situations where helping you also helps them. Make your interests run parallel. That's how alliances last, whether in business, friendship, or family. Let me ask you a question. Think of someone in your life who disappointed you. Was it really betrayal? Or was it simply them choosing what they felt served them best? And if you had understood that from the beginning, would you have been so shocked? This shift in perspective changes everything. It takes you out of the role of the victim and places you in the position of strategist. Instead of lamenting why people don't act the way you hope, you start asking the only question that truly matters. When you learn to see that, you stop being blindsided. You stop being manipulated. And you begin to work with human nature instead of against it. That is the foundation of dangerous intelligence. There's a reason why honest feedback is so rare. It's because most people simply can't handle the truth about themselves. They build walls, layers of excuses, defenses, and stories, so they never have to confront what's really holding them back. I had a friend named Mike who complained constantly about not getting promoted at work. Every time we talked, he blamed office politics, unfair managers, or the fact that hard work doesn't get recognized anymore. For a while, I believed him, but then I started noticing things. He showed up late. He missed deadlines. He argued with his supervisors. So one day, I gently suggested that maybe his own behavior was part of the problem. His response? Pure defensiveness. You don't understand the situation. My boss has it out for me. The deadlines are impossible. I'm just standing up for myself. In other words, he had an excuse ready for everything. It was easier for him to see himself as a victim than to admit that his own actions were the reason for his lack of progress. And that's the trap. Most people would rather protect their ego than face uncomfortable truths. They'd rather believe that the world is against them than admit they might be sabotaging themselves. The Stoics, on the other hand, took the opposite approach. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with more power than almost anyone in history, spent his nights writing brutally honest reflections about himself. He questioned his motives, admitted his mistakes, and reminded himself not to get trapped by pride. He once wrote, "How much trouble he avoids, who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." Why? Because the Stoics understood something that most people never realize. Self-deception is slavery. You can't change what you won't acknowledge. If you lie to yourself about your flaws, you remain stuck in the same patterns forever. Let me ask you what's harder, hearing the truth about yourself or living your entire life repeating the same mistakes? Which is the greater pain? Because make no mistake, avoiding the truth doesn't protect you. It just prolongs your suffering. Think about the people you know who never change. They keep falling into toxic relationships, or losing jobs, or arguing with everyone around them. And every time, they have an excuse. That's just how I am. You don't understand my situation. It's not my fault. But they also chain them to the same problems. Dangerous intelligence comes from doing what they refuse to do. Looking at yourself with ruthless honesty. Asking, where am I the problem? What truth am I avoiding? What feedback have I dismissed too quickly? It's not comfortable, but it's the only way to grow. The Stoics practice this daily. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Growth requires ending the comfortable lies we tell ourselves. It requires the courage to burn down the excuses and face the truth head-on. Here's the reality. People who can't handle the truth about themselves are predictable. You can see their blind spots from a mile away. You can anticipate their reactions, their excuses, even their failures. But if you're the rare person who chooses brutal self-examination, you become unpredictable. You become stronger, wiser, harder to manipulate. So I'll leave you with this question. What truth about yourself are you avoiding right now? Because the sooner you face it, the sooner you free yourself. And that freedom, that courage to see yourself clearly, is what separates the ordinary from the dangerously intelligent. Here's a lesson that can feel like a punch to the gut. The more you succeed, the more some people will secretly, or not so secretly, hate you. And it often has nothing to do with you personally. Success is like a mirror. It reflects back to others what they could be, but aren't. And for many, that reflection is unbearable. Instead of being inspired by your achievements, they feel exposed. They're forced to confront their own missed opportunities, their own lack of discipline, their own excuses. And resentment is the easy way out. I remember my old college roommate, David. Back in school, everyone loved him. He was funny, generous, the guy you could always count on to help with assignments or pick you up when you were down. But years later, when he launched a tech startup that actually took off, everything changed. Suddenly, the same friends who used to cheer for him began pulling away. They'd make comments like, "Money changed him," or "He just got lucky with timing." Eventually, some even started spreading rumors claiming he was arrogant, that he thought he was better than everyone else. But here's the truth. He was still generous, still humble. What had changed was how his success made others feel about themselves. The Stoics understood this dynamic thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius, despite being one of the most disciplined and just rulers of Rome, was surrounded by envy, criticism, and betrayal. He wrote, "Remember that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." In other words, don't look for peace in how others view you, because envy will always be there, no matter how noble your actions are. And here's the dangerous intelligence. Expect envy. Don't let it surprise you, and don't let it change who you are. When people gossip, when they diminish your accomplishments by calling them luck or privilege, understand that it's not really about you. It's about their own reflection in your success. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how people root for you when you're struggling, but grow silent when you start to win? Isn't it strange? Some people only feel comfortable with you as long as you're on their level or below. The moment you rise higher, their support turns into distance, sometimes even hostility. But here's the liberating part. Their reaction doesn't define your worth. It reveals their own insecurities. You don't need to shrink your light to make others comfortable in their shadows. The Stoic response is to remain steady, neither boasting about your victories nor hiding them in shame. You live according to your principles, not for their approval. Seneca, who faced exile and endless political rivalries, still built influence, wealth, and wisdom while staying rooted in philosophy. He understood that success will always attract both admiration and resentment, and neither should control your actions. So what does this mean for you? It means that as you grow, you'll lose some relationships. People who once celebrated your dreams may resent your results. That's okay. It's not your job to carry their jealousy. Your job is to keep moving forward, to keep improving, to keep living a life aligned with your values. Remember this: envy is not proof that you've done something wrong. It's proof that you've done something worth noticing. So don't take it personally. Take it as confirmation that you're on the path most people are too afraid to walk. Here's a perspective that will completely change the way you see human interaction. Everyone is trying to sell you something. Not just products, not just services. Sometimes it's ideas, validation, or even their version of reality. Once you see this, you'll never look at conversations the same way again. I learned this lesson the hard way. An old high school friend, Jenny, reached out after years of no contact. She invited me out for coffee, and I thought, wow, this is great. She just wants to catch up. She asked about my family, my work, even remembered little details from years ago. For 30 minutes, I felt like we had reconnected. And then came the turn. You know, she said, I've been working with this amazing company that helps professionals like you build passive income. That's when it hit me. The coffee wasn't really about friendship. It was a sales pitch for her multi-level marketing scheme. Now, was Jenny a bad person? No. She genuinely believed she was offering me an opportunity. But the reality is that every compliment, every question, every shared memory had been carefully steering toward that moment. The friendship was the packaging. The product was her business. And here's the truth. Jenny isn't unique. Every day, people are trying to influence you, sometimes for money, sometimes for attention, sometimes just to get you on their side of an argument. That doesn't mean you should be paranoid, but it does mean you should be aware. Because if you don't see it, you'll end up buying into things you never meant to. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by generals, advisors, and politicians, all with their own agendas, wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm." He knew that clarity about people's motives was essential for wise decision-making. So here's the dangerous intelligence. Every time someone approaches you, ask yourself, what are they trying to get me to do, think, or feel? Maybe your coworker genuinely praises your project because they admire it, but maybe they're also hoping you'll support their proposal in the next meeting. Maybe your neighbor drops off cookies because they're kind, or maybe they're about to ask you to watch their house while they're away. Again, this doesn't make people evil. It makes them human. Influence is part of human nature. We all do it. The key isn't to see manipulation everywhere, it's to see motives clearly so you can decide consciously. Do you actually want to buy what they're selling, whether it's a product, an idea, or a favor? Or are you being swept along by charm, guilt, or obligation? Let me ask you, how many times have you agreed to something, maybe lending money, maybe committing your time only to regret it later because you realized you were pressured, not persuaded? That regret comes from buying into something without recognizing the real transaction taking place. Once you understand this lesson, you start to recognize patterns. The friend who only calls when they need help. The colleague who flatters you right before pitching their idea. The family member who stirs up emotion just before asking for a favor. And here's the Stoic response. Clarity without bitterness. Don't harden your heart. Just learn to separate the person from their motives. Appreciate the gesture if it's kind, but also see the agenda if there is one. Then make a conscious choice based on your values, not based on someone else's persuasion skills. That's the heart of dangerous intelligence. It's not about distrusting everyone. It's about refusing to be manipulated. Because once you start asking, what are they really selling me? You step out of unconscious influence and into conscious control of your own decisions. Here's a truth that can save you years of heartache. People will always show you who they are. Believe them the first time. The problem is, most of us don't. We ignore the red flags, explain away the warning signs, and convince ourselves that people will change. But the truth is, character reveals itself in small, consistent actions long before it explodes in betrayal. Let me share a story. I once had a business partner named Alex. In the beginning, I noticed little things that didn't sit right with me. He'd exaggerate his contributions in client meetings, pad expense reports with questionable charges, and occasionally forget promises he had made to our team. None of it seemed huge at the time, so I brushed it off. I told myself, he's just enthusiastic. Or, everyone bends the rules a little. But 2 years later, those small cracks turned into a devastating fracture. I discovered Alex had been secretly negotiating to sell our company behind my back, keeping all the profit for himself. And the painful realization hit me. The signs had been there all along. His character was consistent, I just didn't want to see it. Maya Angelou once said, "When people show you who they are, believe them the first time." Marcus Aurelius echoed the same wisdom centuries earlier. Don't judge people by occasional good deeds or words, but by the patterns of their behavior. Stoics understood that character isn't formed in big dramatic moments. It's revealed in the everyday choices, how someone treats waitstaff, whether they keep their word when it's inconvenient, how they handle money when no one's looking. Think about it. How many times have you ignored early signs in a relationship or friendship only to be shocked later? The friend who gossips about others will eventually gossip about you. The colleague who cuts corners on small tasks will eventually cut corners on big ones. The partner who consistently breaks small promises will one day break the promises that matter most. Here's where dangerous intelligence comes in. Don't put your hope in someone's potential. Now, this doesn't mean we judge people harshly for every mistake. Everyone slips up. But when behavior repeats, when the same excuses keep showing up, that's not an accident, that's character. The Stoics taught us to value truth over hope. Hoping someone will change when their actions show otherwise is a losing strategy. As Seneca warned, the company you keep will shape who you become. If you surround yourself with people who are dishonest, unreliable, or selfish, don't be surprised when their behavior eventually damages your life too. So let me ask you, who in your life has already shown you who they are, but you're still refusing to believe it? Are you holding on to excuses for someone because you don't want to face the truth about their character? The most practical wisdom you can apply is this: trust actions over words, consistency over promises, and patterns over explanations. When someone shows you who they are, they're giving you a gift. It's clarity. Believe them and adjust your expectations accordingly. This kind of clarity makes you harder to deceive, harder to manipulate, and far less likely to end up blindsided by betrayal. Because while others are still clinging to illusions, you'll be making decisions based on reality. Remember, people always reveal themselves. The only question is, are you willing to see it? Let me tell you something that may sound harsh, but it's the truth. The comfort zone feels safe, but it's really a psychological prison. And the longer you stay inside it, the weaker you become mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. I once knew a man named Tom, a brilliant software engineer. He landed what most people would call the dream job. Great salary, flexible hours, respect from his team, and tasks that came easily to him. For 3 years, he lived in that comfort zone, secure, stress-free. But slowly, something started to change. Tom noticed his mind felt sluggish. Conversations that once energized him now felt boring. New technologies in his field felt overwhelming instead of exciting. He realized he hadn't learned anything challenging in years, and then it happened: his company downsized. His perfect job vanished, and Tom discovered the hard truth. His comfort had become a trap. His skills had stagnated. While the industry moved forward, he had stood still. What he thought was safety was actually vulnerability, disguised as security. The Stoics understood this danger well. Marcus Aurelius could have spent his reign indulging in luxury, shielded from hardship. Instead, he chose to lead military campaigns, to endure discomfort and discipline, because he knew strength is forged in struggle. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work as a human being.'" He knew avoiding difficulty meant avoiding growth. The Stoics even practiced what they called voluntary discomfort. Seneca would sleep on the floor, wear rough clothing, and eat the simplest foods not because he had to, but because he wanted to train his mind and body. He wanted to remind himself, if this were all I had, I could endure it. By practicing discomfort, they built resilience long before life forced it upon them. So let me ask you, where are you too comfortable right now? Is it in your career where you've stopped learning new skills? Is it in your relationships where routines have replaced growth and connection? Or maybe in your personal life where you've stopped challenging your body, your mind, your habits? Here's the hard truth. Comfort kills more dreams than failure ever will. Failure teaches. Failure stretches you. Failure demands you grow. Comfort lulls you into complacency until one day you wake up and realize the world has passed you by. Think of the athlete who stops training hard after winning a title, only to be crushed by hungrier competitors. Or the professional who coasts on old achievements, only to be replaced by someone younger, sharper, more driven. Or the relationship that slowly dies, not because of conflict, but because of comfort, because both people stop putting in the effort to grow together. The dangerous intelligence here is to recognize this pattern early and to choose discomfort before life forces it on you. Learn the new skill that intimidates you. Have the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Step into the challenge that makes your stomach turn, because that's where growth lives. Epictetus, who experienced both slavery and freedom, taught that wealth is not about possessions, it's about having the strength to handle whatever life throws at you. That kind of strength isn't built on the couch, it's built in the struggle. So the next time you feel yourself pulling back because something feels uncomfortable, pause and ask, is this discomfort the doorway to my growth? Chances are the answer is yes. Because comfort may feel good in the moment, but it slowly drains your potential. Discomfort, on the other hand, sharpens you, strengthens you, and prepares you for the battles ahead. That's the paradox. The more you choose discomfort today, the more unshakable your life becomes tomorrow. Let's end with the most ruthless yet liberating lesson of all. You're going to die. And once you truly accept that, most of your daily worries will suddenly look meaningless. Now, I don't say this to be dark or depressing. I say it because it's the one truth every human being shares, and yet it's the one we spend the most time running from. We live as if we have unlimited days, stressing over petty conflicts, chasing approval from people who don't really matter, worrying about things that won't even register at the end of our lives. I saw this clearly when my uncle was diagnosed with cancer. Before his diagnosis, he lived like many of us, caught up in trivial things. He worried about what the neighbors thought of his lawn, about petty office politics, about whether people respected his career choices. These concerns consumed him, but the moment he faced death, something changed instantly. Suddenly, he stopped caring about all of it. The gossip, the small dramas, the comparisons, they evaporated like mist in the morning Sunday. Instead, he focused on love. He ended draining relationships, made peace with old friends, and spent his last months having real conversations instead of small talk. Despite his illness, he was more alive, more present, and more grateful than I had ever seen him. That's the power of remembering death, what the Stoics called memento mori. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly, it is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. The awareness of mortality isn't meant to paralyze us, it's meant to wake us up. To strip away the nonsense so we can see what really matters. Our character, our relationships, our contributions, and whether we lived according to our principles. So let me ask you, what are you worrying about right now that won't matter a year from now, or even a month? Is it a coworker's opinion of you? A social media argument? The fear of being embarrassed? Will those things matter when your time is running out? Probably not. Here's the dangerous intelligence. Once you face death honestly, you stop wasting your life. You stop postponing the important conversations, the meaningful pursuits, the chances to love and to serve. You stop living for applause and start living for what your soul knows is right. The Stoics practice this daily. Seneca urged his students to ask, "If today were my last, would I spend it this way?" They didn't dwell on death to be morbid. They used it as a compass to prioritize what truly deserves their time and energy. Think about how different your choices would be if you lived with that perspective. That grudge you're holding, would it still be worth your energy? That fear keeping you from chasing your dream, would it still have power over you? That endless pursuit of approval, would it still control you? Here's the irony. Remembering death doesn't make life darker. It makes it brighter. Because when you accept that time is limited, you start treating each moment as precious. You hug your loved ones tighter. You take risks that matter. You stop waiting for the perfect time to live and realize the perfect time is now. So let me leave you with this thought. You will die, but right now, you are alive. And the question is not how long you will live, but how deeply. Stop wasting your life on meaningless anxieties. Focus instead on building character, nurturing relationships, and living in alignment with your values. That's how you turn the certainty of death into the fuel for a meaningful life. Because at the end, you won't regret dying. You'll only regret not living fully while you had the chance. Now, let's talk about the final ruthless lesson that ties everything together. You can't control other people. You can only control yourself. This may sound simple, but think about how much of your frustration in life comes from trying to do the impossible. We want our partner to love us the way we love them. We want our friends to always be loyal. We want our coworkers to treat us fairly. And when they don't, we burn with anger, disappointment, or despair. But the Stoics remind us that's wasted energy. Because no matter how hard you try, you will never control what someone else says, thinks, or does. Epictetus, who was born a slave and later became one of the greatest Stoic teachers, said it clearly. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Up to us. Our thoughts, our choices, our actions. Not up to us, the weather, the economy, other people's behavior, and almost everything else. The moment you accept this division, life changes. Let me give you an example. I had a colleague years ago who made it his mission to undermine me. He'd take credit for my ideas, spread half-truths, and try to make me look bad in front of leadership. For a long time, I obsessed over how to get him to stop. I tried confronting him, reasoning with him, even outworking him. None of it mattered. He kept doing what he was going to do. And the more I tried to control him, the more miserable I became. The breakthrough came when I shifted my focus. I asked myself, what's actually within my control? The answer wasn't him, it was me. I could control the quality of my work. I could control my reputation with people who mattered. I could control my own composure when he tried to provoke me. The moment I stopped wasting energy on his behavior and focused on my own, everything shifted. Eventually, his patterns caught up with him. But more importantly, I was no longer chained to his actions. That's what dangerous intelligence looks like. Refusing to hand your peace of mind over to the behavior of others. Think about your own life. How much time have you lost replaying what someone said to you, or waiting for an apology that never came, or trying to win the approval of someone determined not to give it? What if you stopped? What if you decided their actions belong to them, but your response belongs to you? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, if someone does wrong, the harm is to them. The harm to me only comes if I let it poison my mind. That's the essence of freedom, not controlling others, but refusing to let their actions control you. Does this mean you become passive, letting people walk all over you? Not at all. It means you set boundaries. You walk away from toxic people. You speak truth when needed, but you don't tie your inner peace to whether or not they change. Because here's the harsh truth. Most people won't. The only person you truly command is yourself, your discipline, your perspective, your choices. And when you master that, you become nearly untouchable. People can insult you, betray you, disappoint you, but they can't force you to lose your character unless you hand it over. So here's the question to sit with. Where in your life are you trying to control the uncontrollable? And what would happen if you let go and redirected that energy toward mastering yourself instead? The answer might just be the difference between a life of constant frustration and a life of unshakable strength. Because in the end, true power doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from controlling yourself. So let's bring it all together. These ruthless lessons, the ones most people avoid, aren't designed to make you cruel. They're not about turning you into someone cold or calculating. They're about protecting yourself, sharpening your mind, and learning how to live with clarity and strength in a world full of illusions. The Stoics understood something that most people still don't. The majority of people would rather stay comfortable than face the truth. They cling to illusions that the world is fair, that everyone is good, that effort always brings reward because those illusions feel safe. But safety built on lies is not safety at all. It's weakness, it's predictability. And when reality finally hits, it crushes them. But you're different. By facing these 9 truths head on, you gain something rare, dangerous intelligence. You start seeing people not as you wish they were, but as they are. You recognize the motives behind their actions. You understand the role of emotion in decision-making. You stop being blindsided by envy, manipulation, or betrayal. Instead, you become the one who sees patterns, anticipates outcomes, and makes wiser choices. And that clarity leads to freedom. Freedom from constant disappointment. Freedom from chasing the approval of others. Freedom from wasting your energy on things that don't matter. You'll notice that regrets shrink when your decisions are rooted in reality, not fantasy. Think about it. How much lighter would your life feel if you stopped fighting what you cannot control? If you stopped expecting people to be what they are not? If you stopped worrying about the trivial and started focusing only on what truly matters? That's not just philosophy, it's power. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the essence of what we've been building toward. Dangerous intelligence isn't about manipulating others, it's about mastering yourself. It's about walking through life with eyes open, unshaken by illusions, unbroken by disappointments, and unmoved by the noise around you. So here's the final question for you. Which of these truths hit hardest? Which illusion are you ready to let go of? Because once you do, you step into a different kind of life. One defined not by fear or confusion, but by wisdom and strength. Remember, the real power doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from seeing it clearly, acting with purpose, and staying rooted in your values no matter what storms come. That's what makes you unshakable. That's what makes you truly free. So if you're ready to live with that kind of clarity, if you're ready to join the small percentage of people who stop living in illusions and start living in truth, then carry these lessons with you. Let them guide you in your choices, your relationships, and your moments of doubt. Because in the end, true strength isn't loud. It isn't flashy. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows the truth, faces it without fear, and lives wisely because of it. And that above all is what makes you dangerously smart.